Okay, thanks. Minister, I think we'd all agree that RTE is our public state broadcaster and the entire organisation has been brought into total disrepute by the actions of a few at top management level. It first came to light or came into the public domain when the Deloitte audit of RTE's books finally revealed the overpayment of their top presenter in March 23. But the RTE Executive Board knew of these overpayments. They stayed quiet, hoping it wouldn't be noticed, hoping that the auditors were as inept at their job as the RTE Executive Board have been found to be at theirs. Deloitte missed the payments for almost 6 years. Those years' books should now be re-audited and the truth made known as to how that had happened. I'm glad to hear, Minister, that you've announced the 2 reviews, but in particular the announcement of the forensic accountant to go through the, starting off to go through with the barter account. That's good news and it's a start. But those overpayments have been a doorway that opened onto a scandal that gets bigger with each statement, that grows wider with each discovery, that shines more light on mismanagement and excesses that would shame the most extravagant of Celtic Tiger era excesses. But these efforts alone to conceal top-up payments of $345,000 with false invoicing, UK-based barter accounts, ask no questions mentality, they have destroyed RTE's bond with their staff and the general public. And then we have the 1.25 million barter account, the slush fund that charges 35% handling fee on transactions. Now, we know the commercial section needs to do networking, but it's the sheer extravagance of it. We know that the 110,000 on travel and hotels to the 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan. We know of the 10-year IRFU season tickets at the cost of $138,000 and $26,000 on the 2019 Soccer Champions League final in Madrid. We know too the 40 guests, mainly RTE staff and family, with a few advertising agents who enjoyed going to the U2 concert in Croke Park, enjoying it from the premium level, after a coach took them from the wining and dining in the 22 restaurant in Drumcondra, and the coach was hired to take them the short distance from Drumcondra to Croke Park. The 70 or so people who played golf in the K Club with dinner, a drinks reception and prizes after their round of golf. Oh, and lunch on early arrival and goodie bags. There was no holding back on that too. This was around the same time that there were reports that RTE was considering the future of Lyric FM radio station. All of these events, the events that we know of, were fully or partly paid for through that barter account, and other expenses were paid for using credit cards separate to the barter account, Minister. So the barter account should be fully audited, Minister, from its inception to today, along with the separate credit cards, and this is quite important, the separate credit cards that were used to pay for those lavish expenses, all paid from taxpayers' money. RTE staff, past and present, have been in contact with myself and my colleagues to express their anger at the mismanagement, to express their fury at the waste of money, to express their hope that this time, maybe this time, the RTE Executive Board have been found out and that they, the staff, will be listened to, their needs given absolute consideration, and the unfair treatment that many of them have faced will finally come to an end. The bogus self-employment contracts, the substandard equipment in some areas, the gender pay gap, the language pay gap, I could go on. Many of the concerns raised by staff deserve to be investigated as part of the wider review, and I think you made reference to that being taken on board. It is vital if things are to change. But the RTE Executive Board culture and disconnect from staff is stark. The Executive Board's arrogance and self-importance is striking, and the Executive Board's attitude towards the rest of the staff is, let them eat cake. We await the reports, Minister. all of the reports, the information, but this cannot be buried in paperwork, reports and reviews. RTE is the state broadcaster receiving state funding, and this government has an obligation, a responsibility to ensure that the inside culture of some in top management in RTE that is clearly rotten to the core is rooted out once and for all. And your review of both governance and culture and the external contracts fees is to be thorough, wide-ranging and totally transparent. But there has to be consequences, Minister, for those involved, because if there's not, nothing changes. And from what we've learned so far is that members of the Executive Board, including the former Director General, did underwrite a separate commercial deal for its highest paid presenter and paid that out of public funds, $345,000 worth. We also know that they deliberately concealed these payments by raising false invoices and put those payments through a UK-based barter account. They deliberately published an understated salary of their top presenter, knowing full well that the salary they published was false. And they blew taxpayers' money through a slush fund on the most extravagant Celtic Tiger type splurging, while all the other workers took a 15% cut. The members of the Executive Board and any others involved need to be held account, and it's very difficult to see how they can remain in situ because it all happened under their watch. Again, the most important thing is there has to be consequences for this rotten inside culture that existed if we are to have trust, transparency and accountability in RTE ever again. Because if they remain, Minister, nothing will change and they'll have destroyed any last shred of credibility that the public and the workers will have.